Brudoji.
I wanted to say up front, in this video I'm going to be speaking about the experiences of immigrants, people of color, and marginalized peoples in general. In the spirit of transparency, since you can't see my face, I wanted to tell you I'm a cisgender white male born and raised in the United States. If that turns you off to my opinions about these topics, I totally get that. But I'm also a lifelong Superman fanboy, and my hope is to make that specific fandom more accessible to everyone, because that's what Superman would want. Also, I'm not interested in taking credit for the work and research done by a black queer woman, so right now I'll implore you to watch MelinaPendulum's brilliant video on Watchmen and the Joker, which inspired a big portion of this video. The link is in the description. So, a while ago, it went around Twitter and various articles on sites like Forbes that DC, WB, and the powers that be are at a loss with what to do with the Man of Steel on the silver screen. After his last few outings were overshadowed by newer and shinier toys, many think it's time for something new for Big Blue. I think a lot of modern stories imply that Superman is some indoctrinated Boy Scout who upholds a status quo that he's too out of touch to see is hurting people, especially in recent representations like Batman v Superman or Dr. Manhattan in The Watchmen by Zack Snyder, who in my opinion hasn't updated his comic book library since the late 80s. But I think it's clear to see that this isn't the intention behind the character, and to me, that's not what makes Superman. If what you see when you see Superman is the boringly perfect white dude who has to babysit us pathetic lower life forms, I get that. If the institutions that have conflated and recuperated his image have caused you direct harm, I'm sorry. I know for many people, truth, justice, and the American way sound like an oxymoron. I may be speaking from a place of privilege when I say, that's not the Superman I see. See, I find that people have very cynical views about other human beings. There's an old adage that absolute power corrupts absolutely. There are so many exploitative people in power, it can't be a coincidence. Power has to make people bad, right? I don't think these perspectives are unearned, but I also don't think they're particularly fair or constructive. And the thing is, I think the concentric seat of Superman denies any sort of validation of those perspectives. When I think of Superman, I think of Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster, the two Jewish nerds raised by immigrants in Cleveland that created him in 1933. I think about this and then remember in the fiction that young Clark Kent is raised to hide who he really is for as long as he could remember. Not the craziest thing to imagine from two guys who grew up in pre-war America, which during the lead up to World War II was less receptive to the prospect of taking in Jewish refugees from Nazi-occupied countries than we are to taking in Muslim refugees today. Everyone knows that Superman first appeared in Action Comics #1, and from the jump, those first stories involved beating up a corrupt governor to get him to pardon an innocent woman on death row, rescuing a woman from kidnappers, and tearing down tenement buildings so the slumlords have to build better housing. In 1946, within a decade of the character's inception, the radio drama The Adventures of Superman ran a story titled The Clan of the Fiery Cross. Although historians dispute the verifiability of these claims, save for a specific example in the second episode, apparently the story disclosed actual rights and practices of the KKK and other terrorist groups. In the story, he saves a Chinese immigrant family from a gang of hooded racists while exposing KKK secrets in the real world. Inspired by the story, comics genius Gene Luen Yang published Superman Smashes the Klan in October 2019. In the video I mentioned, Melina talks about the timely and brilliant Watchmen HBO miniseries and how one of the main characters, Wade, learns about Superman's origin story alongside an immigrant, and he notices how similar the story of the desperate scientists from a doomed planet sending away their last hope is to his own life. His parents literally sent him away as a child in the midst of the Black Wall Street massacre in 1921. In that moment, his experience mirrors that of the world's first and greatest superhero. In that moment, Wade is Superman. When I was young, maybe in the 4th or 5th grade, I read the children's literary classic The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and experienced something amazing. It was after, spoilers for a 70-year-old book, the death of Aslan, and C.S. Lewis writes about how Lucy and Susan feel watching their hero's demise, powerless. C.S. Lewis wrote, "I hope no one who reads this book has been quite as miserable as Susan and Lucy were that night. But if you have been, if you have been up all night and cried till you have no more tears left in you, you will know that there comes in the end a sort of quietness. You feel as if nothing is ever going to happen again." I've never experienced trauma or discrimination on the basis of race, gender, or sexuality. In that way, I've been extremely lucky. But I did learn younger than I should have what it's like to cry myself to sleep at night. And in that moment, it felt like an adult had reached across half a century and laid his hand on my shoulder and told me he could see me, that it was okay. I imagine that's something, although not exactly like what Wade was feeling. What anyone who feels like they can't be their true selves could see in Clark, given the right story. They have to hide their sexuality or gender identity or culture. They're made to believe that if they don't fit in with the majority of those around them, the consequences could be dire. And I remember how he takes what makes him different, embraces it, and saves the world with it. Enough of the sappy stuff. Recently, Polygon published an opinion piece with the appropriately clickbaity title, "Games Need to Return to Black and White Morality." While it was divisive among the gaming community, I think it makes a salient point. Melina, again, check out that video, points out that, like a lot of media these days, Todd Phillips' Joker uses the guise of moral ambiguity as an excuse to not take a hardline stance that might alienate audiences that would otherwise pay for the product. I think this idea applies nicely to our best boy in blue. A common criticism I hear about Superman is that he represents an overly simple view of black and white morality, that there's no room for moral grays. But Supes has been around for almost a century now, and he can be an incredibly nuanced character while still having that simple morality. In Secret Origins, the multi-part story that kicked off Bruce Timm and Paul Dini's amazing Justice League animated series, Superman is complying with UN orders to disarm nuclear weapons around the world. The people see him as an alien, overstepping his boundaries and taking away our ability to defend ourselves as ordinary human beings. But Superman is only doing it because he wants to show that he's subject to the same laws as we are, that he's not above us. Not only is this an incredibly rich conflict within the character, it also serves the story as a whole. The UN has been infiltrated by white Martians who are using Superman's good intention to disarm the people of Earth for a coming invasion. Can you see Henry Cavill's Superman doing anything like that? In fact, I think Lex Luthor represents the status quo, and Superman represents the disruption of it. Superman has the kind of power that Lex can't buy, threaten, bribe, or schmooze. Moreover, Big Blue goes against everything Lex knew about the dog-eat-dog world we live in. Clark is just like all the countless people Lex stepped on to get to the top. Only Lex can't step on him. He has to face it. And he can't. That is the central fantasy of Superman, in my opinion. Sure, he has none of our physical limitations, but the things that make him super are the things that make him human. He can make you laugh like your dad.
It tickles.
He can maintain composure even when seething with rage, because he's always had to.
I feel like I live in a world made of cardboard, always taking constant care not to break something, to break someone. Never allowing myself to lose control, even for a moment, or someone could die.
He doesn't see us as some chattering inferior species that he has to steward. He sees each and every one of our lives as unconditionally, inalienably invaluable. He falls in love, feels loss, and embraces himself. All things we do.
It ends today. Ends without a single loss of life.
Maybe ordinary people given extraordinary power don't become monsters. He could do anything, and he chooses to do the right thing. He was always going to be Superman, but Clark Kent is who he chose to be. One of us. I think for some people, superheroes are about giving you someone to believe in, but Superman is the superhero that believes in you.